the streets of Kansas City, here in the heart of America. It's almost February 1st. We've made it through our first month of 2021. And it looks like things are perfectly boring in the news, which is quite fine for me. Speaking of which, I was going over my analytics on YouTube and what's doing good and what's doing not as good. And a pattern emerges that what does good is every time I change my title to the Third Civil War or Civil War III or Welcome to the Third Civil War, my numbers are much better than the more mundane four-wheel live. However, that's not what I'm about. And I don't want to be spending all my time just talking about one subject. I don't want to see my country turned into something like Ukraine, which is what I think, if we keep going in the direction we're going, is going to happen. And I wish people could stop and look around and go, you know what? This is history repeating itself, and I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to be a fool and do what some dictator me to do so that he can add more rooms to his palace, or maybe add more palaces. First thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to stop here at Tripwick. But I pray that there is a new people power movement growing in the former Soviet Union, and maybe people will take care of business that obviously some Americans have forgotten what this is all about. It will show maybe Americans that we need to do the same. We need a rebirth of patriotism in this country and pride, and we need to see the racists for what they are and what they will do to our peace in this country. I mean, you got people much more willing to deal with Putin's Russia than they are with people in their own country. That's how far down some of us have gone. Anyway, I will be right back. whatever else. Metric system, as we have been taught, is based on the measurements of the planet we live on, things that are relative but are actual measures we can. I remember in the 1970s we were going to be doing the metric system. They were teaching it in schools and everything, and you could even see then how much more based on logic and science that system of measures was, but we just couldn't adapt. And so therefore we're one of the few countries in the world where we use an old archaic measuring system. And I sort of feel like these days we have people who are fighting to maintain that kind of thing. And we have laws that date back to before the Civil War that are still on the books. They were completely based in trying to maintain what's the term they used back then? Status quo antebellum. Let's just keep things so that we can not inconvenience people and not make people change their ways and ideas, even though the rest of the world has been changing and evolving. That's what it really means to be progressive, to have progressive ideas, is to compare the old to the new and go, well, we don't need to keep doing the old if it's all for us. Maybe we should new ideas if it's more based on logic and reason. And to that end, I proudly wear my mask. I do my part. As some people maybe don't realize, for the most part, when you wear your mask, you are protecting others. And in so doing, you hope that they will wear their mask and do what they should do to protect you. I'm not perfect in this regard. I may start getting sick tomorrow like all the rest of us. We live in this world where we don't know. And speaking of the beer flu, we've been playing around with it way too long and been playing with fire. The danger of the beer flu is not that it's such a horrible, deadly zombie apocalypse right now at this moment. The danger is that it can mutate, as these things often do, and turn into something much worse. So, wisdom is we make few sacrifices now, which for a lot of people are big sacrifices. I understand that. In hopes that we can prevent a bigger calamity tomorrow. And it's become a political thing. And some people just, this is about my freedom, and no, it's not about your freedom. And your freedom, I've never understood that, and we've all kind of dealt with that sort of irresponsibility and childishness our whole lives. When people believe that their freedom is to do whatever the hell they want to do, that's not what freedom is at all. And I'm not talking, this is socialism, and you got all your definitions screwed up if you think that way. People want to march on Washington and threaten other people in this country, and they're going to have their way. No, that's not freedom. That's fascism. Yes, I do know what fascism is. I know where it comes from. There was this hardcore socialist, the hardest core of all the socialists. His name was Benito Mussolini. He was very, very popular. He wrote a lot of pro-socialist articles and about the time of World War I. But then he felt this huge wave of patriotism for his country, which was actually a fairly young country at the time, Italy. Italy was not a country until the 1800s, when all the different feuding states in Italy joined together to become the country of Italy. There was this militarist movement to fight against their enemy to the north, which was Austria-Hungary, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Now, up until that time, Italy was on the side of the Central Powers, which was Germany, Austro-Hungary. But they felt like, wow, you know, the Austria-Hungarian Empire has property that we want to the north. So let's fight a war with them since they are on the decline. We'll join up with the Allies, which was Great Britain, France, and then Russia, and eventually the United States. And we'll fight a war. But it didn't go well for them. Their military had outdated equipment, outdated ideas, stodgy conservative generals who wanted to do what a lot of powers did at the time, just charge at the enemy with human beings, and we will overwhelm them with force, which after the 1850s was a well-known tactic if you wanted to commit suicide, because in 1914 war had evolved to the point that it became a mechanized, industrialized operation. And if you charge at a defensive position, they can make more bullets than you can make men. And that's exactly what they did. Millions of dead. People began to realize that the people who were ordering people over the top were not the best people to be following. Many of them were royal families who felt entitled to their power, position, and privilege. And many of them, up until that time, you think it was all Downton Abbey and fun and stuff like that. Well, you may romanticize that, but you know what people were doing in those country manners, those royal people? The reason why they were having so many problems, because royalty could only hang out with royalty. That's the way they thought. Well, they were having orgies. That's what they were doing. Were in loveless marriages because they believed that royalty can only marry royalty, and marriages were arranged for power, prestige, and politics, not for the individual's happiness, and definitely not for love. And so here we go. The inevitable happens. Industrialized, mechanized death on a massive scale, fought for old, outdated ideas, and we charge over the top. And people wonder, well, how did socialism really take root in the post-World War I era? Well, the seeds were being sown before that time, but it really took root because people were looking for answers. There's a story of a British soldier who was I believe he was an officer, and he was a doctor. He had his whole life in front of him, but then he went and signed up for God and country to defend the king, went over the top, laid on the battlefield suffering before some merciful soul came along and collected him and took him to the hospital, where somehow miraculously he lived and somewhat recovered, but you never recover from that. And afterwards he swore off his old ideas and country and everything and embraced socialism, was an avid socialist until the day he died. And he was also disabled. He was not able to take care of himself after that. A whole generation wasted wholesale for the pride of the king, the kings, the Kaiser, the Tsar. Again, outdated ideals. Kaiser and Tsar, if you don't know, are words that mean Caesar, the grand emperor, the emperor who God himself has ordained, and therefore we must never question their authority. Bring us back to that. He said, I would define fascism for you. Fascism also has its roots in ancient history, in the Roman Empire. Because Benito Mussolini, who was formerly a big socialist, changed his stripes in the Great War and decided he was going to be a socialist, yes, but a fiercely proud patriot for his country, a nationalist, hardcore nationalist. There you go, combination of the two words, National Socialism. Still socialism in there. If you ever wondered, the policies of the Third Reich, which came after Mussolini's fascist-based system, were still socialistic ideas. But at least they're not communists. No, they're communists who believe in fiercely fighting for their people over yours to the point of committing genocide on your people. The symbol for the fascist party in Italy were the fasces. And fasces are these the kind of like axes on a long pole. I don't know how to describe it, but it was for harvesting wheat, and it became the symbol of the ambitions of the newly reformed Italy after they deposed their monarchy, became a republic, like a lot of countries did in the new nationalistic period after World War I. Something, again, people never really learned their lessons. And that became the national symbol. If you look on images of Italian airplanes, it's a circle with these three long pole-looking things with kind of like a hooked blade on it. Those are called fasces, and that's where the term fascism comes from. It was the symbol of the ancient Roman Empire, which is ironic because Rome, when it passed from the Republic period into the Imperial period, cared very little about the small farmers or the small merchants. Cared a lot about the very ultra uber rich, and they are the ones who actually ran the government. That sounds familiar. Well, that's because that's a weakness of a modern democracy. That the government becomes about the rich, for the rich, and of the rich. The police force it becomes very important to protect the rich from the rabble, which is us. It's a tendency that we have to resist and fight with all our energy and effort. And unfortunately, History has shown that it's a losing battle. Maybe we'll figure it out someday. We'll figure out a way to keep the power of greed and corruption in check. And to that end, I'm hoping, but not very hopeful, that history will be kind to Russia for once, because they have been fighting a long war against totalitarianism. 1917? When people who decided that there's a few, I'm going to say these words, liberal elites that should run things all over us all, called the dictatorship of the proletariat. The proletariat are more or less the intelligent people among the rabble, the serfs, us, the peasants. And because they're so smart and they know what they're doing, they should run everything for all of us and tell us what to do until the people's paradise just somehow magically happens. It sounds like bullcrap to me. And if you look back on history, you see that it is pretty much bullcrap. Because, when people take power, they don't ever want to give it back. Especially when it means they can live in a palace. Their families are taken care of. That is just human nature. Human beings, if we have we eat like there's going to be no food tomorrow, and there's a reason for that, because we are programmed that way. We are programmed to think that way. We are still inside, even though our eyes, we're still deep down inside, we are cavemen, basically, fighting for survival. And, it's why people have to discipline themselves to back away from the dinner table. I know I have that problem. I know a lot of people have that problem. It's like, quote unquote, making air quotes here, emotional eating. Oh yeah, you need to eat to survive. And it's like, thank God our bodies are evolved to the point we know when to stop drinking water, because by that idea we would kill ourselves by drowning. Oh, can't get enough water. I'm going to drink all the water there is and not leave any for anybody else. I have seen this. I know of a person who didn't have enough to eat when they were younger. And now we have the hardest time in the world telling them to stop eating, because they're eating like there won't be any food left. Well, anyway, I got to leave it here. I'm almost to my destination, so thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and click the bell icon.